Okay. So yesterday we looked at organized crime. Today we are now going to look at something called international crime. And there basically are four types of crime that are called international crime. You can be held accountable not by the nation you're in, but by Earth. Even if it's legal in your own country, it doesn't matter. Earth can put you on trial. And this has happened many times. So, for example, how many of you are aware of something called the Bosnian genocide? Does that sound familiar? If you're in World in Conflict, I believe, not World in Conflict, if you're in history of the Holocaust, I believe that you start with the Holocaust itself, but then you branch out to other things. Am I correct? Anyone in history of the Holocaust? No. Okay, never mind. So what happened, basically there was a civil war and people were targeted based on their ethnicity. And what the leaders who authorized the genocide said was, how can you say we broke the law when we made it legal? You might not like it, but we made it legal. What law did we break? This one. The law that says if you live on the planet Earth, you cannot engage in genocide, which is specific targeting of a certain group of people based on some criteria. Is it race? Is it religion?
So if like Earth can put you on trial, like where do they like actually go?
Very good question, right? So there are these things called ICCs, International Criminal Court, and it's based in the Netherlands. Do you know where the Netherlands is? Could any of you walk back to that world map and find the Netherlands? You could? Go ahead. Find the Netherlands.
Let me.
You're the, not quite.
Wait, is the Netherlands not what I'm thinking of? Is that not Holland?
Holland is okay, you're right. It is Holland.
Wait, I thought I was thinking of it. Like Denmark, right?
Right. You and I are close enough. Okay, good enough.
Okay.
Very good. Yes, it actually is two names. And if you think that's weird, you live in a country with two names. There's this thing called the United States, and then there's this thing called America. Okay, it's actually common. Anyway, that's the headquarters of the International Criminal Court. There are four. Genocide means targeting of a certain population based on some common criteria. Are they a certain race? Are they a certain religion? Those are the big two. Okay. There have been attempts to expand that. So, like, for example, in certain parts of the world, if you're gay, they kill you. And so, but that, I don't think that is one of the criteria, and I'll add this word, yet. It might be yet. Okay. And then there's something called crimes against humanity. This is usually where you engage in, for example, let me give you an example, and then I think you'll understand what crimes against humanity is supposed to mean. So when the United States invaded Iraq in 1991, what the retreating Iraqi army did was they ignited the oil machines that were digging oil in Kuwait and then setting them ablaze, creating a catastrophe, an environmental catastrophe, just loads of pollution. Well, you can't do that. You're releasing toxic fumes into the air. That's considered a crime against humanity. Or another example, Afghanistan is home to some of the oldest ruins on Earth, these thousands of year-old ruins. Well, this group called the Taliban took over in the early. They felt that those things were idolatry, false worship of false prophets, and there's only one God, and so any sort of creation of any religious artifact was an idol, and you can't do that. So they destroyed these 1,000-year-old artifacts. Well, no, you can't do that. That's a crime against humanity. You're not supposed to do that. Or if any of you ever heard of this guy by the name of Joseph Kony. Joseph Kony? Did you know, you probably didn't know this, did you know that there are kids called child soldiers? Does this sound familiar to you? Yesterday, I guess this was really cool. So Noah came home. Noah's my son, who's a senior in Stillwater, and he said that a former child soldier, the guy was 12 when he was given a machine gun and basically ordered to slaughter people by these tribes in Africa. And so he's a child soldier, right? And he escaped and made his way somehow to Stillwater. And what he does is he goes to schools and he's a guest speaker. But he was given a full scholarship yesterday in front of the whole student body to, I don't know what school, but the guy was bawling and he said it was very touching. But anyway, you can't do that. That's a crime against humanity. You cannot arm 12-year-olds and tell them to go into villages and slaughter all the people. So that's crime against humanity. The third one are violation of war rules, like invading a foreign country. You can't do that. So example, did you know that Russia right now militarily, do you see that little blip right there, that little green, just that little thing, that little peninsula? That is supposed to belong to a country called Ukraine. Russia invaded it a couple of years ago and is militarily occupying it right now. You can't do that. That's a violation of war rules. You can't just invade a foreign country. Now, of course, what Russia says is, well, the people there want us to. The people there are mostly ethnically Russian. And so they wanted us to do this. So they're actually arguing that they're not violating war rules. Will you put your phone away? Thanks, pal. Okay. And then the final one is violation of something called the Geneva Convention. Basically, this involves how you treat people under your control. Prisoners, POWs, prisoners of war. Can you torture? Why not? Why can't you torture? Where's the law that says you cannot torture? Right there. The Geneva Conventions. So it is the Geneva Conventions that basically says you cannot torture prisoners. You don't get to saw their heads off, or even threaten to saw their heads off. Here, let me ask this question. Let's say I fill a needle and I stick it in Kayla's arm and say, if you don't start answering my questions, I will inject you with this poison. You will die. Now, where is he? Okay, now it's actually full of water. Okay, she's not gonna die. But she doesn't know that. Did I break the law? Did I know? Did I break the law? Or does she just think I broke the law, but I actually didn't break the law? Yeah, okay, I broke the law. All right, I gave you the answer. Yes, I did. I broke the law. Even the threat is a violation of the Geneva Convention. You can't even make the threat. Okay, so do know the four types of them of international crimes. Okay, yes.
How do people prove that they were threatened, though? Like,
Well, there's no doubt that it's sometimes difficult to prove.
okay.
It's difficult to prove. These things are sometimes difficult to prove. Okay. The next and last type of crime that we are looking at is something called transnational crime, which is different from international crime. Okay, so do know the difference. International crime, crimes against Earth. Then there's something called transnational crime. Basically, the definition goes like this. In the engaging of a crime, you cross a national border. So, for example, when Mexican drug cartels sneak illegal drugs into the United States, they've just engaged in a transnational crime, not an international crime, right? I mean, where is illegally crossing drugs across a national border? What international law are they violating? And you might argue, well, it's a crime against humanity or something like that. That's a little bit gray. But when you cross over a border in the engaging of a crime, you've just engaged in a transnational crime. It's usually smuggling of something, either people, drugs, or black market items. That's transnational crime. So maybe note to yourself, it's usually involved smuggling of some sort. That's a transnational. Okay. This is kind of a fascinating world map, which shows what type of transnational crimes are we talking about. Usually it's moving of drugs. The larger the pie chart, the more it happens. The largest pie chart is the moving of illegal drugs from the Americas to the US. We are the world. Here's another gold medal. Here's another medal stand where we are at the top. We are the leading consumer of illegal drugs. Yeah. Woo! We whiten people's teeth. We lead the world in removing medical objects that were accidentally left in, and nobody consumes more illegal drugs than us. Eat it, Russia. Smuggling of people that want to get into the country illegally, that's a transnational crime. Okay? Illegal drug use, smuggling of prostitutes are a big thing, right? So mail order prostitutes. So you've got these wealthy people in Asia and they want to buy a bride. So the illegal kidnapping of these girls when they're young and raising them to be a mail order bride, it's all illegal. You can't do that. It's a transnational question. Do you understand the difference between transnational and international? Silence means, yep, I get it perfectly. I could write a book about it. Just rule of thumb, if it's smuggling a product from point A to point B, it's probably a transnational. Yes, dear.
Can you leave the U.S. illegally?
Sure. Yes.
You can.
Sure. If you are under some sort of probation, you cannot leave the country. Absolutely.
But can a normal person with none of that, can they leave illegally? Because there's people that can come illegally, but can you leave illegally? Is that a thing?
So you are a law-abiding citizen. Is there any reason why you'd be breaking the law by leaving the country? I bet if I sat for a while, I could probably come up with some sort of a scenario to say yes, but generally the answer is no. One of your unstated but implied rights is the right to travel. Now, that's not in the Constitution anywhere, but it's implied. You have the right to travel. Okay? You also have the right to pursue your career goal. Now, which amendment is that? It's not an amendment. It's just an implied right. It's one of those things that's just so obvious that they thought, well, why bother writing it out? Imagine you manufacture a ladder. Do you have to list every single way that this thing can be used or is dangerous? No way. The print would be this big. Warning, do not grab ladder and smash your neighbor's head with it, right? And I take the ladder and I smash my neighbor's head, and does the neighbor say, ha-ha, gotcha, look at part B of rule number 3. And we're like, damn it. God, if I had only read the thing. No, right? It's just obvious, right? Okay. Our final slide is something called white collar crime. It is very, very probable that you have been a victim of white collar crime. It doesn't get the headlines because usually there's no deaths involved. There's no violence involved. But this is probably financially a much larger impact than murder and kidnapping and all that stuff. It's the fraudulent crime engaged in by businesses. So you take the car in because there's a little clunk, and then you get the bill a couple days later and they say, yeah, we fixed the clunk, but then we noticed that this was wrong and this was wrong and this was wrong and this was wrong. So we fixed it all. Here's your bill. And you look at it like, I didn't want you to do any of this. That car company cannot do that. That is illegal. They cannot do that. Or, so that's the unnecessary repairs part here. I know that my wife has been the victim of credit card fraud. How many of you have had a parent say oh my God, they're looking at the bill like, I was never in Nashville, Tennessee. Somebody got a hold of your credit card number. And okay, so some of us have experienced that. Let's see, what else have I been affected by? A price lie. I've had that. We re-roofed our house. They gave us a quote, and I actually got the bill. They were nowhere even close. What about the estimate? You have to go with the estimate. And they tried to rip me off, right? But they didn't know who they were messing with. Okay, so it's the fraudulent business practices. That's white collar crime. It involves money.